Hello, 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 everyone. We are here for another Love Your Liver live stream. I am Dr. Garrett Smith, known as the nutrition detective around these here parts. Now, there are some cool developments. What we're going to be talking about today, we're going to go over a couple testimonials, breathing, and how breathing can slow your detox down if you do it wrong, which, if you don't know, most Americans breathe terribly. We have terrible breathing patterns, just like terrible posture. It's all together. It's a nature, it's a chicken or the egg thing as to what causes it. But anyway, breathing, we're going to go over the as I do with the research showing how breathing affects your detox negatively if you do it wrong, and therefore how we can do it better to improve it. And it's not just, it's kind of like I talk about, you don't just want to go put a turbocharger on an old broken down car. So if you don't have good breathing mechanics, going and trying to do like a bunch of, let's say, yoga breathing exercises and stuff like that can make it worse. You can actually solidify really bad patterns. As Tony Blauer says, right, you can, if you practice, be careful of what you practice, because you may just get really good at the wrong thing. And if you don't know who Tony Blauer and the Spear System is, if you're into very straightforward, simple self-defense stuff, I highly recommend looking into his stuff. Tony Blauer is a genius, I think. So anyway, the testimonials, let's hit those first. So here was a testimonial left on Facebook. I did post this around my social media the other day. I'm just going to read it off. Just to add to this, I have been low vitamin A for 8 months now, plus a lot of detox, sauna, and sunshine. Lo and behold, my eczema cleared up. Also doing the minerals and lactoferrin now for over a year. My thyroid numbers are now normal. The one health issue that was making me crazy was this awful acne that I have never experienced in my life. I just chalked it up to detox. After hearing a podcast from the nutrition detective, right, about hormones, I went off my bioidentical hormones. I have been on them for over 20 years. My face cleared up in a few days. Wow, just wow. Feeling great with 4 exclamation points. Thank you, Dr. Smith. You rock. So that was the end of the testimonial. Let's just cover a couple things here. 8 months. So I saw somebody in the chat mentioning, who's fairly new to this, saying that they haven't felt anything yet. Well, I think that was Emily in the chat. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We are trying to fix things that have been present for years, if not decades, in people, sometimes from birth. Like people if you were born jaundiced, you've had liver problems since you were born. Okay? Fixing this is not an overnight thing. Actually, on this channel, there's a video about the timeline of vitamin A detox that I did with Grant Genereux. Now, both Grant and I, as we're going through this, are realizing that this process actually takes longer than even we thought when we made that video. So we do not try to mislead people and say that this is some quick fix. This is not a quick fix. And if anybody's telling you it's a quick fix, they're wrong. And if anybody's trying to get you to avoid ever having any detox symptoms by eating egg yolks, well, they're wrong too. And they're just going to make this, I don't believe you're going to get out of it if you decide to go the egg route. I'm sorry, folks. That's a whole little branch of this that I think is just absolute nonsense and counterproductive. And so does Grant. So anyway, be wary of break-off groups thinking they know better. So anyway, that was this. So we had, what did she do? Low vitamin E for 8 months now, plus a lot of detox. I don't know what that means in this context, right? Because we're all doing a lot of detox. Now, sauna, I'm going to tell you guys, sweating is one way to get rid of toxins. Yes. Those of you who are not feeling well, if you push saunas too hard, I have said before that sweating and heat will increase bile dumping. Yes, you could get some more toxins out through the skin, but you're also dumping more bile potentially into your bloodstream. If you feel wrecked after you do sauna or after you're out in the heat, like here in Tucson, it was 109 yesterday, right? And if people go out in the heat and they say the heat drains me. Well, what does that mean? It means you dumped bile into your system and you feel crap because you got a bunch of bile dumped into your system. So anyway, if you do sauna and you feel wrecked after it, well, first of all, make sure you're hydrating well and make sure you're getting electrolytes. And we have huge articles on electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, salt, sodium in the Love Your Liver program. So if you haven't read those are pretty important, especially so you don't poison yourself with garbage salt that everybody thinks is healthy for them, like pink salt, which has rust in it. Stop eating pink salt. It's pink because it has rust. White salt plus red rust equals pink salt. Same thing with real salt. Why is it reddish? Iron. Don't eat rusty iron in your salt. It's good for you. No, it's not. Don't eat rust. So anyway, sauna, just be aware that it can push you too far. And sunshine. So sunshine is great. We talk about that. How much sunshine can you do? Should you do? Well, it depends on where you live, right? But if you feel wrecked after you go in the sun for too long, you did too much. If you go and you do a tanning bed or a spurty and you feel wrecked after it, you did too much. If you're getting noticeable skin damage from the sun or a tanning bed or a spurty or whatever, you're doing too much. Your skin is still too toxic for however much you're doing. So chill out. Okay? But these things are all great. It's like lifting weights, right? Lifting weights will make you stronger if you do it right. You lift wrong, you can hurt yourself. It doesn't mean lifting weights is bad. It means don't be a dummy. Or as the saying goes, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. How about if we're just not dumb in the first place? You do have to kind of push to find your limits, but what you do is as soon as you start finding that limit, you back off. Okay, so anyway, she says, lo and behold, my eczema cleared up. So when we are here and we talk about the detox priority order, first of all, this person was doing saunas and sunlight. They were cleaning out their skin, if you will. But also, it goes liver's your first detox, kidneys are your second, skin is your third. So if we're fixing toxicity, what's the first thing that should fix? Your skin, because it's the last in the priority of detox. So when your skin stops detoxing so much toxic stuff, it will improve. If you have less vitamin A, retinoic acid pushing out through your skin will improve. Okay. She says also doing the minerals. Well, that's a big topic. Is she talking about keystone minerals? Is she talking about other like individual minerals, which I often use? We don't know from this testimonial. And lactoferrin. Again, we have the best lactoferrin on the market. You can find it in our shop at nutritiondetective.com. But she says also doing the minerals and lactoferrin now for over a year. And her thyroid tests are now normal. Somebody go tell the Ray Peat people that we're fixing thyroids without having to take thyroid medication, because they would really do well to know this information, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Hold on one sec. People who work with us get off, as if they are working generally often with me directly or Nathan, they start to feel comfortable with weaning themselves off of their thyroid medication. And their doctors are often amazed that their thyroid numbers are coming into line. Don't doctors usually assume that once your thyroid's broken, it's broken for good? Oh, wait, don't forget, folks, we're not using iodine. How are we doing it? How are we doing it? Well, if you haven't seen my articles on vitamin A destroying the thyroid, let me find that article. Let me go find that article. This is an article on my old blog forum. Let me go find TSH. There it is. Go read that article about how vitamin A affects the thyroid. If you have thyroid problems, I would say 99% chance you have a vitamin A toxicity issue. Okay. Let me just finish up on that testimonial. Wait, where is it? There it is. So the one health issue that was making me crazy was this awful acne that I have never experienced in my life. Okay. So we're going to get into, her eczema is clearing up, but she got some acne. Okay. Can these things be caused by different toxicities? Well, it's possible that acne is connected to both vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity. Why does zinc help with acne so much in the research? Because zinc counters copper toxicity and vitamin A toxicity. But anyway, so if I just heard this out of the blue, acne was showing up, I'd be thinking, what? Person's pushing detox too hard, which is common. If you're doing this stuff and you don't feel good, you're probably pushing something too hard, or there may be a mineral deficiency like zinc. So people can take minerals, but if you don't test, you're guessing. This is why I do testing. This is why we test hair and blood. So you can take some zinc. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's too much for you. Maybe it's just right. Maybe it's not enough. You don't get to know without testing. So anyway, or it could be toxins coming in, overloading your liver. And then what she says, after hearing a podcast from the nutrition detective about hormones, I went off my bioidentical hormones. What processes hormones, folks? Oh, your liver. So hormones by themselves are a load on your liver. Your chronic health issues are liver issues. So if we can remove or reduce the load on your liver, we can never remove the load on your liver. Sorry, that was incorrect. But if we can reduce the load on your liver, it's amazing what your body can heal. So she got off her bioidentical hormones. Bioidentical hormones don't cause any problems. That's a crock. She says, I've been on them for over 20 years. Gosh, is that a load on the liver? And then she says, my face cleared up in a few days. What do we fix here, folks? We reduce toxicities, we correct deficiencies, and we watch the body heal itself. This is what we do. Why doesn't everybody else do this? So anyway, she said, wow, just wow, feeling great. Thank you, Dr. Smith. You rock. Well, I am here to serve. So here we have another testimonial. Quote, very interesting. I have a small testimonial. I have been following the Love Your Liver course guidelines for about 5 weeks now. This is the do-it-yourself program, the Love Your Liver program at members.nutritiondetective.com. This person's not working with me, okay? So when things are done well and the person is ready to respond, you get to see what happens. So I have been following the Love Your Liver course guidelines for about 5 weeks now and already see improvements in my skin. It is no longer dry. In fact, in the winter, I always had to apply lip gloss several times a day to keep them from cracking from dryness. But recently, I went a couple of days forgetting to put it on. My lips are not dry. So this person was talking about their lips. Okay, they were talking about skin also, but they were talking about their lips too. I see the same effects on my facial dryness, legs, no dry, scaly skin, and heels. Yeah, if you have dry, cracked heels, you're toxic. Okay. Also, a pockmark I had from chicken pox in my childhood that was over the last several years constantly expressing a teeny bit of whitish stuff is now healing. OMG. I know this program works and I'm looking forward to discovering other positive effects. So, does the skin detox like an old chicken pox? Chicken pox is toxicity. I'm going to tell you what chicken pox is. Chicken pox is something that triggers a bile dump in children. It's a child-specific disease, but it's the body dumping toxins. Why are there all these childhood skin diseases? Because the body is dumping toxins through the skin. It can do it. Childhood, the magic of youth, which means detox is stronger. Body pushes it out through the skin. You get skin issues. That's what's going on. So, old pockmark from childhood, still detoxing white stuff out of it. Oh, we stopped putting toxins in. The detox little skin thing goes away because it doesn't have all that stuff to detox anymore. It can go away. This is what we do. So those are the testimonials. Now I want to go into breathing. You have to breathe, right? They say, what is it? 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without air. So in the priority list, what's the thing that you got to make sure you're doing all the time is breathing. It said we breathe 20,000 times a day. Some people say 22,000. I've seen 24,000. 20,000 something. Okay. Breathing gets, so what do we talk about that are really toxic in this field that are gaseous in the air, fumes, if you will? Aldehydes. What's the smell of cinnamon? Cinnamaldehyde. What's the smell of vanilla? Vanillin, which is vanilla aldehyde. What's the smell of cumin? Cuminaldehyde. Are you following me? Then there's also alcohols like peppermint is menthol, right? So these things are gaseous, which means that you could breathe them in, right? Why is smoking so bad for people? Because your lungs are designed to absorb things. Your gut is designed to absorb things, but your lung is designed to absorb things out of the air. That doesn't mean it's choosy. It means it absorbs everything, just about. But it also means that you can get rid of stuff through your breath. If you are breathing better, you can get rid of more stuff because the exchange of air within your lungs, it has better exchange. Okay? So if we can improve that, you can breathe better. Now, for any of you who are interested already, the breathwork course that I do, the stuff that I'm going to do as soon as I'm done with all my video Q&As for the day, the breathwork I learned from Rome Za. His full name is Roman Zadriansky. He's an amazing guy. And I went and met him in person, and he taught me this stuff in person, but he has courses, the nervous system evolution course. That is the breath work that I do. And I can tell my breathing capacity, my vital capacity, the difference between how big your inhale is and how small your smallest, the exhale is. So it's like the difference between the biggest inhale and the smallest and the tightest exhale, if you will. I don't know how to say that exactly. But anyway, it's great. I absolutely feel like almost everything has improved even more since I've started it. So let me go over some of the science here about this, because people will go, well, what's the proof, right? First, I'm just going to go over a quick study on the obviousness of bad breathing and what it does. Let me just make sure this is the right one. Apnea, yes. So we have sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea almost always happens in people who are carrying too much weight. Don't fool yourself. There's no magic here. People find all the time that if they lose weight, their sleep apnea gets better. Just about every single time. I'm not going to say every single time, but just about. What is overweight? Well, I've done videos on this. I've done Twitter threads on how the vitamin A toxicity connection to obesity. Okay. So we have this vitamin, and what is vitamin A? What is one of the forms of vitamin A? Oh, it's an aldehyde. So we have this study this is maybe just not English speakers again, but increased the circulating levels of malondialdehyde in patients with obstructive sleep apnea. A systematic review and meta-analysis. I believe they mean increased circulating levels of malondialdehyde in patients with obstructive sleep apnea. So they're breathing poorly, right? Sleep apnea, they're actually stopping breathing for periods of time, right? Let's go to this. So conclusion in this study, the results of this meta-analysis demonstrated considerable elevation of malondialdehyde in patients with obstructive sleep apnea compared to controls. The meta-analysis also indicated a positive association of malondialdehyde levels with the degree of severity of obstructive sleep apnea. So the worse the sleep apnea was, the higher the malondialdehyde levels. And so they're saying malondialdehyde levels are higher in people with sleep apnea. And the worse the sleep apnea, the higher the malondialdehyde levels. Okay. Now, why is this important in terms of breathing? Sleep apnea is like the worst breathing you could do. But here's the weird thing. Malondialdehyde, for those of you who are trying to, who are, about PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and how bad they are for us. The big thing that PUFAs turn into that nobody talks about, it seems like, except me. I mean, very few people talk about this. They turn into malondialdehyde. So those PUFAs that are not good for us, that's one of the reasons the industrial seed oil trend was so bad for humanity. I mean, first of all, the less fats you add to food, the less malondialdehyde you're going to have, because it takes fat to turn into malondialdehyde. So here's the weird thing, right? Obstructive sleep apnea, terrible breathing, raises malondialdehyde levels. But malondialdehyde levels come from PUFAs that you've eaten. So you see how it gets really bad if you start looking at overweight people and often their diets full of seed oils, and you combine that, and then you've got vitamin A toxicity, which is retinaldehyde. But what I'm getting at is that they're not clearing the aldehydes out of their lungs, right? Poor breathing means they're not clearing the aldehydes that way. Okay. I've got research now on urinary levels of malondialdehyde levels. I'm sure they measured in the poop too. What I'm going to tell you also is the slower your aldehyde dehydrogenase, the thing that breaks down aldehydes in your body. So this is a big thing we work on in the Love Your Liver program, is trying to restore your aldehyde dehydrogenase levels to normal. This is very different than what a lot of you people who might want to think you're real smart. You're going to go on PubMed and you're going to look for things that increase the speed of aldehyde dehydrogenase, and you're going to make mistakes that have already been made. Like you might find a study that shows that drinking alcohol speeds up ALDH. And so you start adding alcohol to your regimen because you made a mistake. And then later, just like I did, I made this mistake already. I made this mistake so you don't have to. I realized I wasted about 6 months to a year misreading the research. You don't have to make these mistakes. It's in the Love Your Liver program. We've made them already. We're 4.5 years deep into this process. We've made your year 1 and year 2 mistakes a long time ago. Okay. So anyway, poor breathing. Well, if you're building up aldehydes in your system, in your blood, everywhere, you know how I say like the routes of detox, right? Liver is first. That's where you want to get rid of the poisons. Kidneys are next. That's where you want secondary toxin breakdown, but it tends to damage the kidneys. And then skin is third. That's where it comes out, and it's toxins coming out of your skin, and it damages your skin on the way out. Let me just review another saying here. It's a poison on the way in, and it's a poison on the way out. So poisons on the way in, aldehydes can damage your lungs on the way in. You can go and look up pollution studies and aldehydes, and it'll damage stuff on the way in. Why do cigarettes damage you on the way in? I mean, geez, come on. But it's also a poison on the way out. And we'll get to see that in a second. So if you're overflowing with aldehydes because you can't clear them, you're going to push them out through your breath. Is this good? Well, if you have too much coming out of your lungs, it's going to damage your lungs on the way by. Okay? So this is why this is a holistic approach. I saw somebody the other day, somebody on Twitter DM me, and they're like, well, I'm not going to pay you just to not eat vitamin A. I'm not going to pay for your Love Your Liver program just to not eat vitamin A. That's not hard. And I went, well, there's a lot more stuff in there. After this guy just read a comment about somebody repeating the importance of my saying, this is not a game. They were saying, this is really not a game. And this gentleman's just going to go off and do his own thing. And I was like, go ahead. Have fun. Have fun. So what this can do, think about this. If you can breathe better, you're detoxing better through your lungs, which means that you're not going to have as many detox symptoms. Okay, so how do we know that we can detox? We can speed the rate of detox without causing damage. Well, let me get this paper called Accelerated Ethanol Elimination via the Lungs. Ethanol, alcohol, drinking alcohol, right? What does ethanol turn into via ADH? It turns into acetaldehyde. So alcohol turns into acetaldehyde. If you did not know, acetaldehyde is why you have hangovers. Acetaldehyde is what would kill somebody in alcohol poisoning. Acetaldehyde is basically almost all the negatives of alcohol come from acetaldehyde. Just think of it that way. Okay. So what they did was they hooked people up to this. Here, I'll just read this little part of the article. We hypothesized that isocapnic hyperpnea, I'll go over what that is, previously shown to be effective in acceleration of clearance of vapor anesthetics and carbon monoxide, would also accelerate the clearance of ethanol. So what they're doing is they're going to hook somebody up to a machine that makes them hyperventilate, but it also gives them back extra carbon dioxide so they don't get lightheaded and pass out, because hyperventilating, right? You'll pass out after a while because you build up the your gases get out of balance. But they're saying here they already know that if they breathe faster, but they keep them at the same carbon dioxide level, they stay awake and they can detox not only anesthetics, but carbon monoxide faster. And they theorize that it could help with alcohol. Okay. Here we go. Isocapnic hyperpnea increased elimination rate of ethanol, alcohol, in proportion to blood levels, increasing the elimination rate more than threefold. Increased veno-arterial ethanol concentration differences during isocapnic hyperpnea verified the efficacy, how well it worked, of ethanol clearance via the lung. These data indicate that isocapnic hyperpnea is a non-pharmacologic means to accelerate the elimination of ethanol. So first we've shown sleep apnea, they build up more aldehydes in their system because their breathing sucks. And now we start showing that if we can breathing more, which is not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to have you like hyperventilate all day, but breathing more can clear more alcohol, AKA also it's going to turn into acetaldehyde. We can clear more through the lungs. Okay. But now I'm going to read, this is a more layperson friendly article. I know isocapnic hyperpnea is a pretty big term. So here's the article from Science Daily. This is talking about the same study. Okay. A potential game changer to reverse alcohol intoxication. Here we go. Normally, 90% of the alcohol in the human body is cleared exclusively by the liver at a constant rate that can't be increased. Currently, there is no other method short of dialysis whereby alcohol can be removed from the blood. Well, let me make one correction here, folks. And those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program or who have worked with me, you're welcome to validate this or not in the chat or in the comments later. What people have noticed after doing this work, after making their liver healthier, is that should they choose to drink alcohol, their tolerance of it goes up. They are not as affected as negatively and in terms of getting drunk, and also they do not have as bad a hangover. Now, am I trying to tell you to do the Love Your Liver program so you can drink more alcohol? No, that would be stupid. Alcohol is a straight poison. Don't ever fool yourself that alcohol is not a poison. Like, alcohol is a straight poison. Should you choose to drink it, that's up to you. I just want you to understand that it's a poison, and think about this. How counterproductive would this be to make your liver healthier? So then you force yourself to drink more alcohol to get a buzz. Kind of counterproductive, isn't it? Right? You're like, well, this is so great. I can drink more poison before I get drunk. Okay, so anyway, I just want you to have the truth. What you choose to do with it is up to you. But so here's what they were saying. The team found that indeed hyperventilation eliminated the alcohol at least 3 times faster through the liver alone, than the liver alone, than through the liver alone. But here's the quote from the senior scientist. Quote, "But you can't just hyperventilate because in a minute or two you would become lightheaded and pass out." Dr. Fisher and his team used a device that allows the patient to hyperventilate off the alcohol while returning precisely the amount of carbon dioxide to the body to keep it at normal levels in the blood, regardless of the extent of hyperventilation. Okay? So, you can't just hyperventilate to do this, right? Those of you who have done, like, let's say, Wim Hof breathing, where you get that head buzz, and maybe some of you have passed out, that's a little bit of this effect. That's only like what did you do? A minute of it? I don't remember. I did it for a while, but I think it was, or was it 30 breaths, 20 to 30 breaths or something of that breathing. That's I talked to Rome about that, and I'm like, that's like stress breathing. That's like panic breathing. And he's like, yeah, totally. So we're not trying to get into panic breathing. How many of us need more stress in our lives induced by breathing patterns? None of us. It's like the whole hormesis thing. Those of you who are still out there thinking hormesis, you were sold that idea. You were sold hormesis by the pharma cartel and the industrial poison industries. Why would they say, who do you know in this world who doesn't have enough stress in their lives that they need more stress? And who do you know in this world who is underexposed to modern poisons that they need more poison in their life to function at optimal levels? Hormesis in today's world, in today's modern world, is complete horse crap. You were sold it by the poison industry to make you think that there's some amount of poison that you need to have in your system. So what do we know here? We know ethanol and retinol, vitamin A, the alcohol, these are the alcohols. Ethanol's an alcohol, retinol's an alcohol. Ethanol turns into acetaldehyde, and retinol can go back and forth between retinaldehyde. Okay? If we've got slow ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase, which is what turns aldehydes into acids, it moves them along the detox pathway. If that is slow, you will build up aldehydes in your system. This could be retinaldehyde, this could be acetaldehyde, this could be formaldehyde, this could be the aldehydes you like to eat with your spices and herbs on your food. This could be you poisoning yourself with essential oils. Like anything citrus essential oil smells that way because of citraldehyde. Citraldehyde is known to slow down aldehyde dehydrogenase. The more toxic you are, the slower your aldehyde dehydrogenase gets. Another example from a study I've been over before, they gave young mice alcohol, and they gave old mice alcohol. And this is why I want to tell you that you go and try to read these studies on your own and make the same mistakes we already did. You can go do that. What they found in the young mice was that ethanol, alcohol, sped up ALDH. And what they found in old mice was alcohol slowed down ALDH. Well, what do we see in people? Young people don't seem to get hangovers. Old people seem to get really bad hangovers. What's the difference between young people and old people? The old people have accumulated more toxicity. Toxicity makes your detox run slower. Are you following me? So then if you're old, or if you're sick, you don't just go and put on a turbocharger on your crappy running engine, or you burn out the engine faster. So, hold on. In toxic bile theory, a slowed down ALDH, not good, also goes with decreased bile production. So you're not making as much bile. Where's the bile staying? Well, it's probably still being made. It's getting stored in your liver, called fatty liver. And it also tends to go along with more cholestasis or toxic bile leaking into your blood. Okay? And then if you build up aldehydes in your system, your body is going to try to get rid of them and push them out however it can, and they're going to come out through your lungs. And if you have too many aldehydes coming out through your lungs, you're going to damage your lungs. Okay? Poison on the way in, poison on the way out. So what can we do to fix this? Right? We eat fewer aldehydes. We do things, we stop doing things that slow down our ALDH, like putting poisons in, like drinking alcohol, stuff like that. And we do things that in theory would help ALDH to run better, like minerals like selenium and molybdenum. Okay. And then what's the final thing that I'll be honest, this was an oversight of mine, or I just had to get to it in the development of this process. We could breathe better. So you can exchange the air out of your lungs better every time. Use it or lose it, right? If you don't breathe well, the use it or lose it thing, you don't breathe well, your breathing's actually going to get worse as you get older, right? Because you don't do it well, things only tend to get worse. So now, what about aldehydes in the breath? Well, let's go into this paper. We'll get to the super chats, folks. Don't you worry. Here we go. Straight chain aliphatic aldehydes were repeatedly detected in the breath of patients suffering from lung diseases. Several studies found increased concentrations of exhaled aldehydes in patients suffering from lung cancer, inflammatory and infectious lung diseases, and mechanical lung injury. Mechanical lung injury. And they see more aldehydes coming out through the breath. This is an important, this is like, I don't know where I'm going to put this in the order, but this is obviously your lungs are a detox route that we had not been talking about much yet. Okay. Now, there are some people, especially Asians. Now you can be of any race and have genetically slow ALDH2, aldehyde dehydrogenase 2. This can be any race. But where do they have the most research on this? Asians. It is said 50% of the Asian population has the genetically slow ALDH. So their ALDH, to be blunt, sucks genetically. 50% of Asians, their ALDH2 sucks genetically. It's just the way it is. So if they can't break down aldehydes the normal way, where are the aldehydes going to go? We've been talking about this. They're going to come out through the lungs. It's a poison on the way in. It's a poison on the way out. Your body's going to push it into the lungs. Well, here's the paper, Effects of the Common Polymorphism in the Human Aldehyde Dehydrogenase 2 Gene on the Lung. Let me put this link in here. Here's the quote, ALDH2 polymorphism has several subtle effects on the lungs, some of which are similar to changes observed during normal aging, suggesting a premature lung aging effect. Okay, so now just imagine if you have somebody who has this genetic polymorphism, their genes, they're genetically slow at ALDH. Like I said, this could be, I had a friend growing up, white guy, his sister had what they called an alcohol allergy. That's what this is. Like, so if you know somebody who gets the Asian glow or the Asian flush, or when they drink, it's like they have half a drink and they're giggly and their face turns bright red and they seem to get drunk very quickly and they have terrible hangovers. They likely have a crappy ALDH2, or there's just super toxic already, maybe a molybdenum deficiency, all sorts of things could be going on. Okay. But what they're saying is that if these people can't clear aldehydes genetically very well, it's going to come out through their lungs. It's going to age their lungs quicker. And then I know somebody's going to be like, well, wait, why would you want to breathe more aldehydes out through your lungs? No, your body's going to, okay, the amount of aldehydes is going to come out through your lungs anyway. If you breathe better, it's kind of like with aging, right? People are getting old. They're going to likely lose strength anyway. But have you seen the research on when old people do strength training and how much it helps their walking? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the same thing. You can take people who are getting older, They've got walkers, they're in wheelchairs, they've got canes, and sometimes they put them on a strength training program and they don't need that anymore. All the toxicity stuff is still going on. All the deficiency stuff is still going on. They're still that old. But you made them stronger and the problems got less. So the idea here would not be to avoid good breathing. Good breathing helps everything in your life. And most of us in the Western world do it terribly. I didn't get a chance to, I was going to ask Rome to be here on the chat. In the Love Your Liver program, I do have Rome's email. Actually, I'll send, I have the, like I said, I have the link to the nervous system evolution down here. I think his website is on the landing page there if you want to try emailing. If not, maybe I'll post it here if you have questions for him. But anyway, so this paper, endogenous means created from within. Endogenous aldehyde accumulation generates genotoxicity, toxicity to the genome, and exhaled biomarkers in esophageal adenocarcinoma. So esophageal cancer. This is very associated with the Asian population. So they're saying endogenous aldehydes, aldehydes made from within us, accumulating, is toxic to the genome. Here we go. Here's the quote. Thus, we present a model for increased aldehydes based on endogenous, as in made within the body, accumulation from reduced detoxification, which also causes therapeutically actionable genotoxicity, genomic toxicity. So again, what can we do to fix this? We put less aldehydes in. We help the body to clear aldehydes, both through ALDH and both through breathing. And then we get the minerals, the nutrients that we need to run aldehyde dehydrogenase. So what can I say? I still have some more studies to go through from this, but I want to finish talking about the things that I've seen. I can absolutely tell you that my breathing capacity has increased since working on this. I feel I can move further. When I breathe, everything just moves further. Like I have a bigger capacity to it, as they call the vital capacity. That's one thing that Rome measured on me. And I went from like a C, they give you like a grade. I went from a C something to a B after one session. And knowing what I feel now, I am absolutely positive that the next time Rome measures me, I'm sure Rome talks about vital capacity in the evolution, the nervous system evolution. But you can measure it by measuring your rib cage and how, like at a biggest inhale versus the smallest exhale. Do you know what I mean? Like the tightest exhale. And he has a scoring system. I don't know where he got that from. But anyway, I can actually tell you that my detox dumps, like when people have bile dumps, people in the program know all about these. I can tell you that when I do know I have bile dumps, they resolve a lot more quickly. And I've always thought aldehydes have something to do with the bile in the blood. It's because when you dump, let's say when you dump vitamin A into your bile, well, it was a retinol ester, a retinol bound to a fatty acid ester. So it comes out of your liver as an alcohol. And then alcohols turn into what? Via alcohol dehydrogenase. They turn into aldehydes. So when you have a bile dump, some of your symptoms, I mean, it could be toxic copper coming out, it could be toxic manganese coming out, could be vitamin A coming out, but you will have increased aldehydes. You know, you can store formaldehyde in your liver. You know, you can store alcohol in your liver. They're called ethyl fatty acid esters. You can store all these aldehydes in your liver bound to fatty acids, which goes along with Sam. Do you understand? I'll get to your question, Sam, I hope. But Sam's asking, why do some people feel so much better when they eat so much fat? Possibly because the fat binds to your aldehydes or alcohols, and then it's stored in your liver, so it's not in your blood, so you don't feel bad. This doesn't mean it went anywhere. Fat doesn't detox anything. Fat in your diet stores more toxins. That's what the body does. Why is everybody worried about fat-soluble toxins like forever chemicals? Because they store in you, in your body fat, in your fatty liver. They store in you. The more fat you put in your diet, the more you can store them. May make you feel better for a while until your liver overflows, and then it's all just coming back out into your system anyway. Those of you out there who tried high fat, keto, whatever, and maybe you had a honeymoon phase where everything seemed great, and then all of it fell apart, feel free to comment in the chat or in the comments later. Oh, by the way, don't forget to like this video. If you're in the chat right now, maybe X out of the chat and like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you get here, watch this later, make sure to leave a comment. And so I'm going to tell you guys one other thing that I have absolutely noticed since I started doing this. And this is vanity. This is absolute vanity. I'm not denying this. Humans are vain because vanity is part of what we look for in other people for reproduction. But I can tell you that my abs actually have changed since I've started doing this. My abs look better. It's not just body fat. There's a different look to them. It's very subtle, but I can actually tell. And Rome, I talked to Rome about this, and he's like, yeah, this other woman I know always says that about the breath work. So let's just get into some of these other papers real quick. I have found a fun study here. Because everybody likes to make the excuse that they're OCD, right? I'm so OCD. Well, if there was some epidemic of toxicity that could be connected to what we even jokingly call obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD, and everybody goes, well, that's not true OCD or whatever, or like what do they say? What's the other one? Oh, I forget. No, not ADHD. What's the other one? Anyway, here's a paper. Malondialdehyde concentrations in obsessive compulsive disorder, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So they looked at multiple studies. Conclusion, we found that malondialdehyde levels are higher in OCD patients than healthy controls. Where am I telling you that aldehydes can be released from into the blood? Via the bile. The liver dumps bile. Bile contains things bound to fatty acid esters, like alcohols that then break down into aldehydes. Aldehydes affect the brain. Your OCD behaviors are linked to your liver and potentially to the aldehydes floating around your blood. I just thought that was a fun one because maybe you've noticed when you're not feeling as good, when you're not doing as healthy of things, or when you're more stressed and when everything's coming down on you, you tend to do things like you forget if you locked your car or not. You forgot where you put your keys. You feel like you have to go back and check on things. Like these are just little behaviors. People will be like, well, that's not technically OCD. Everything starts somewhere. Like severe depression probably started as mild depression. I don't know why people think these things aren't connected. It's just a process. I don't know why this is so difficult, other than it's people being apologetics for the pharma cartel. I mean, everything started somewhere, folks. So now let's go into this one. Aldehydes in exhaled breath condensate of patients with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. They don't breathe well. Wait, that's the next one. Okay, so we have COPD. Let's see. Where was it? Malondialdehyde, hexanal, which means hexanaldehyde, right? They do that so they hide it from you. And heptanaldehyde were increased in patients with COPD as compared with non-smoking control subjects. Okay. What they were doing in this study, they were trying to compare aldehyde levels of patients with stable, moderate to severe, with stable, they say stable, comma, moderate to severe, comma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease to those of smoking and non-smoking control subjects. Okay. They found that all the COPD people had more aldehydes in their breath than the non-smoking control subjects. If you don't breathe well, you're not going to clear aldehydes. If you don't clear aldehydes, you're going to build them up in your system. If you build them up in your system, they're still going to push out through your lungs, but you won't clear them well, so they'll do more damage to your lungs while they're there, right? You push too much water with too much pressure through your house water pipes, and you're going to burst a pipe. Does this make sense? Like, too much of something more than it's designed for will damage it. Now we have, so remember, as I said, the basic order of detox: liver first, kidneys second. If you have too much aldehydes in your blood, you're going to have too many aldehydes going through your kidneys, and it's also going to push out through your lungs. So what do we have here? Exhaled breath, volatile organic and inorganic compound composition in end-stage renal disease. Wait, what did Grant have? Chronic kidney disease. He had jaundice. He had really bad eczema. He had chronic kidney disease that they were gonna put him on dialysis for, was the next stage. Okay? What did he do to fix it? Well, I can tell you that Grant's chosen diet, beef or bison, brown or white rice, and he did black beans, is an extremely low aldehyde diet. It's an extremely low fructose diet. It's generally a lower fat diet, and the fat that he was eating was mainly coming from whole foods. I do believe he cooked his ground beef in like a tablespoon of olive oil. But think of how much fat people out there are eating every day. So his fat intake was low. Excess fat ruins your liver. He had no fructose. Excess fructose ruins your liver. He had no spices or herbs, adding aldehydes from that. He didn't drink. He had basically, it was a very well-designed diet. He didn't know it at the time. He was just trying to eat low vitamin A, but he had a very well-designed diet in terms of all the things that I have figured out cause liver problems. So here's what we have. Conclusion: exhaled breath of patients with end-stage renal disease on regular hemodialysis treatment, so they're even on dialysis, is characterized by an increase in ammonia and malondialdehyde and pentane. Okay. And the final one we'll go over, I think. No, we got a couple more, and I'm going to. Malondialdehyde in exhaled breath condensate as a marker of oxidative stress in different pulmonary, that's lung diseases. Excluding, here's the results. Excluding, what is IPF? Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Excluding, so not counting idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis subjects, malondialdehyde levels were significantly higher in all, they're saying, lung or pulmonary disease groups than in the control group. Malondialdehyde level was significantly higher in COPD than asthmatic and BE, which is bronchiectasis. So the last conclusions say EBC, which is exhaled breath condensate malondialdehyde, is increased in subjects with chronic airway disorders, particularly in COPD, and it is related to FEV1 reduction. What is FEV? Forced expiratory volume. So a measure of their breathing capacity. Turn that off. A measure of their breathing capacity showed the worse their breathing ability, the more malondialdehyde they had in their breath. So again, the worse their breathing ability, the more malondialdehyde in their breath. The forced expiratory volume, an exhale when they try to breathe out as much air as they can in 1 second. The worse they could exhale, which would be how you get rid of what? Aldehydes. That's when you get rid of it. The worse you do that, the more it builds up in your system, and you have even more aldehydes per breath coming out because your exhales suck to begin with. Okay? So I got to do my sinus rinses earlier. Okay. Another one. So I'm trying to show you that you do clear aldehydes through your lungs. They're showing you that the sicker you are, the more aldehydes you have coming out in your breath. So it's a higher concentration. The higher concentration does more damage. So the better you breathe, the less aldehydes you're going to have per breath, the less damage you're going to do, and the more you're going to clear out aldehydes from parts of your lungs which may be stagnant. That bottom part of your lungs, most people never breathe out of the bottom part of their lungs. They never exchange air down there because they're all like shoulder breather, like they're breathing up there. You want to learn how to use the bottom part of your lungs as well. So, where were we? Oh yeah, we were here on this one. I may have already just pasted this one in there, but I'll do it again just to make sure it's there. Malondialdehyde level in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease exacerbations. Do you remember last week when I went over how when people had an exacerbation of shingles, they had the lowest copper levels in their blood when they didn't have an attack of shingles. Then it shot up to the highest level while it was spreading. The shingles were spreading, and then as it was resolving, it went down, but it still wasn't down to the baseline. Okay, so these exacerbations, weird that copper would go up during a viral disease. And they say, oh, the virus hides in your nerve roots. And then for whatever magical reason, it decides to leave your nerve roots and cause you problems. No, you dumped toxic bile with copper into your system. Copper is particularly bad for your nerves. And all of a sudden you show up with a nerve disease for a while. Takes your liver a while to clear that copper out of your system. And once it's cleared that copper out, then the problem goes away. Okay? So here we have an exacerbation of COPD. The MDA, so here's the results. The MDA level, malondialdehyde level, was correlated with C-reactive protein levels. That's a marker of inflammation. Wait, so the malondialdehyde level was correlated with the CRP levels and white blood cell count during exacerbations. Those patients who had recurrent exacerbations, repeated exacerbations within 60 days, had significantly higher levels of serum malondialdehyde at day 14 and 30 compared to those without recurrences. Conclusions: persistently heightened systemic inflammation followed by OS. What is OS? Where is OS? Oxidative stress, which is malondialdehyde, seems to support COPD exacerbation. A high serum malondialdehyde level 14 days after may be used as a predictor of recurrent exacerbations within 60 days. So what they're saying is if you don't clear the malondialdehyde level, you're more likely to have another exacerbation because the exacerbation is probably caused by the malondialdehyde levels. Okay? Among other things, there was the heptanal and the hexanal and the pentanal and all these other aldehydes that are coming out through your lungs. But think of these lovely people who go to the hospital with their COPD exacerbations, and what are they feeding them in the hospital? You think they're feeding them good food, or you think they're feeding them seed oils and genetically modified garbage? And I swear, it's like there was a saying I heard that Europeans used to say that hospitals are where you go to die. We know what happened during the little viral problem with people in hospitals, right? I only want to go to a hospital if I am like dying, like in a car accident, dying. Otherwise, keep me out of those places. So the link, if you are interested in Rome's nervous system evolution, it's down in the information below. Rome is an amazing guy. He's got all sorts of other courses that he's coming out with. Absolutely love this guy. I hope he comes and answers questions in the comments if you have them. For those of you in the Love Your Liver program, I do have his email. He has his email listed in the article, so you can contact him directly. But breathing. This breath work is not hard. It's 6 exercises. 6, yes. 6 exercises. It's if you think of it's exercise for your breathing. And the Rome's standard process, his standard training regimen is 7 minutes long. So if you have 7 minutes a day to do this, you could improve your detox for the rest of the entire day. And as you get better and better at it, you improve your detox all the time. It's real. Especially if you know you're out there and you know you have an ALDH problem with your genetics. Genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger. Well, let's say your environment got you vitamin A and aldehyde toxic. You're pulling the trigger. And you've got the genetics. So you better get on this breathing. Okay? So that's what I got on that. I absolutely highly recommend it. You guys know I don't talk about a lot of products on these things. I'm absolutely talking about this one. So let me go find, I saw some super chats. Okay, Allison says, I've eliminated many foods that are high vitamin A, but I've noticed since 6 months ago at times I have itching places on my back or stomach, nothing severe. Whoa, why'd that jump? Whoa. Okay, and she added another little comment after that. She says, also, I have not been tested since April 2022. Planning to do that in the next month. Possibly an adjustment needs to be made in your diet or minerals. Well, itching, detox order, right? Liver, kidneys, skin. If you are getting itching in your skin itching, pruritus, as they call it, is a common thing with, I'm not saying you're pregnant, but it's a common thing in pregnancy. Because what happens in pregnancy, folks, remember the bioidentical hormones testimonial earlier? Pregnancy massively increases hormone production. And people say, well, that's natural, that's good. Okay, but your liver still has to deal with it. Right? You get a ton of business at your job. It can be overwhelming. It's good. You have to deal with it, but it can still suck, right? You need the business to stay alive, but dealing with it can be very difficult. So, pregnancy as an example, maybe Hope can comment in the chat if she wants to about her experiences with pregnancy and doing all of this work we're doing. But yeah, pregnancy, it's now been said, I have that paper, I've been over it before, that they consider cholestasis, toxic bile leaking into the blood, to be a normal part of pregnancy these days. That's how sick everybody is. They consider toxic bile leaking into your blood a normal pregnancy effect. And what is the biggest symptom of cholestasis in pregnancy? Itching. Okay. So now, Allison, assuming you're not pregnant, right? So, who knows? But we're assuming you're not pregnant. So if you have itching, what this means is likely your liver's not keeping up with whatever job it's being presented with. Your kidneys aren't keeping up with whatever job they're being presented with. And or your bile recipe, the composition of your bile, is such that it's showing up with skin symptoms. So when we're pushing things all the way past the liver, the kidneys, and it's coming out the skin, what is the solution? Well, generally, if we're talking about could you be pushing things too hard, if you're doing lactoferrin, that can really push things way too hard for some people, and you may need to back off on that. If you're pushing certain other soluble fiber too hard, that could be pushing things too hard, too fast. Now, also, when you talked about minerals, this is one of the things we do look at. I do believe I mean, it makes sense that if you had a super dirty house to clean, you would use up your cleaning materials very quickly. Does this make sense? So let's say your detox is using up, just as an example, more zinc than you are putting in. I'm not saying this is what's going on. I'm just saying this is things that I look at. This is why we do the testing. So if we do the testing and I see that, oh, wow, even though you started taking more zinc as you're going through the detox, we see this all the time. We give people more zinc, they're eating more meat, they're doing all this stuff, and their zinc still goes down. And then people go, well, what's going on? This doesn't make sense. No, and you go, you just used up more. Your body started detoxing, and it's using up zinc. Your body says, oh, cool, we have zinc now, and we're detoxing. You stopped putting in the toxins, so you start detoxing. You start putting in some of the minerals, which is the cleaning materials, and your body starts trying to clean up stuff as fast as it can because it goes, thank goodness we're finally going to get out of this mess. And your body just wants to get out of it. So it uses up the zinc very quickly. And sometimes you can end up with less zinc than you started with. As another example, you're in this dirty house. You live in a dirty house. And you have, let's say, X amount of cleaning materials living in the house, but the house is not cleaning itself. Okay? The house is dirty, but you have cleaning materials in the house. And all of a sudden, something happens where you go, it's time to clean up the house. Let's start cleaning up the house. And you start using the cleaning materials. And let's say you're still even buying some, like you're supplementing some zinc, but you use up the cleaning materials faster than you replenish them because you're so excited to start cleaning that you end up with, half of the cleaning materials in your stock that you started with. This is what happens. This is what a lot of people don't understand. And this is just something that this is why we test, we don't guess, then we address. Okay? So yes, you're right. You're absolutely right, Allison, about testing. Testing is folks, if you're out there, and let's say you're taking the Keystone Minerals, one of our products, kind of like our multi-mineral product, and you tolerate it, great. Now, if you try taking it and let's say it's too much zinc for you, or it's too much selenium for you, or it's too much molybdenum for you, and you don't tolerate it now, then don't take it. If you don't feel good on it, don't take it. How many other supplement companies do you hear people say, if you don't feel good on our supplement, then don't take it? Right? They'll tend to gaslight you into some other reason. Right now, you may just not be ready for it. It may start you detoxing too hard, too fast. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Then don't do that. Okay? So, 30 milligrams of zinc in the Keystone Minerals. This is kind of like I hate multivitamins, but it's the concept that people understand. It's kind of like my multivitamin dose of zinc. It's enough to help usually start refilling people a little bit. If you had a really severe zinc deficiency, let's say we have a 250-pound person and they're overweight and they're super toxic. Lots of fat storage, lots of toxins stored in their fat, and they're eating some meat and they're taking a Keystone Minerals. Is that going to be enough zinc to undo decades of stored toxicity? And they started from a zinc deficiency. Probably not. Is something better than nothing in this case? As long as they tolerate it, yeah, something's better than nothing. But it may not be enough. Right? It'd be like if you spent 3/4 of your savings and you make enough at your work to put $50 back a month into your savings that you spent $5,000 extra out of, how long is it going to take you to refill what you took out? 100 months. So this little bit of math, you start to go, oh, wow. So if we test, then we get to know how at least our levels are going. We do two main things. One, we test so we see, think of testing the hair and the blood as it shows us the map. Okay? The map shows us where we are and where we're trying to get to. Okay? So now, those of you who have used maps, or let's say you've looked at Google Maps, you can pick your routes, right? There's multiple different routes that you could go to get there. Which route is the best for you? How much zinc feels good to you? How much zinc is too much? How much zinc is not enough to get us where we want to go? Well, we do two things to get you there. One is we start, when we have a new client, we start people on a dose that we tend to think would be like, it's like what you want to call standard of care. So we have the amount that we think would be best for a person based on the people who have come before. Okay. Let's say, and we start, but what we also do is we start people slow. Because what if you're one of those people who's really, really sensitive to zinc because your liver's full of vitamin A and full of toxic copper? Maybe you're coming to us from the protocol or the revolution and eating liver, like you're just full of toxic copper. And any amount of zinc dumps that copper out of your liver because the zinc goes into the liver and it kicks out the copper because your liver would rather have zinc in it than copper. So your liver gladly pulls in the zinc and kicks out the copper. So we start slow to see what your tolerance is. And then if you are working with me or Nathan, you have the access to the office hours, which is our follow-up that's included in the packages. So you can come in and say, I don't feel good on this. What should I do? And then we give you guidance. So there's the testing, there's the guidance, and then we start slow. Now, other people out there, a lot of us were this way, kind of lazy thinkers. They're just like, why can't you just tell me how much I need? And then the same person will be like, everyone's an individual. And everybody needs different things. And I'm going, I just took this concept and I applied it to nutrition. Why do people think that everybody should take the same amount of some mineral? Like that, there was a guy on Twitter saying everybody should be taking 200 milligrams of zinc a day. And I was like, people were sending me his tweet all over this. Like, this is going to be a disaster. And then I think the guy also posted on a later tweet that he was like vomiting from too much zinc. And I'm just like internet laughing and pointing. Like, it's just over 100 milligrams of zinc for a long period of time, people, is like pretty much guaranteed zinc toxicity. It's not copper deficiency, it's zinc toxicity. And yeah, that's what the research says. So if you decide to go and take way too much zinc, you're going to cause a problem. You're going to have a bad time. Okay? So, but yeah, when I hear, the reason I brought up zinc for Allison's question is when I do hear itching, pruritus, skin issues, I think there could be a zinc deficiency. The two big things I think of, pushing detox too hard or a zinc deficiency. Those are the two first things that come to mind. Let me just go and do this. Zinc, pruritus, PubMed. Okay, so wow. Here's the paper. Beneficial effect of zinc supplementation on pruritus in hemodialysis patients with special reference to changes in serum histamine levels. Okay, hemodialysis people, their liver's already not keeping up. Now, the liver not keeping up puts so much bile and toxic stuff into the blood that now the kidneys failed. Kidneys aren't keeping up. It's coming out through the skin. Do you see? This is the detox order. So they gave them zinc. What did they do? In patients with pruritus, with itching, the serum zinc level decreased and serum histamine level increased, showing a negative correlation between them. As zinc went down, histamine went up. Oral zinc sulfate. Now, oh my gosh, don't use zinc sulfate. Oral zinc sulfate, 445 milligrams daily for 2 months. That's not the elemental zinc, folks. No, that's not elementals. Don't go and mess yourself up with this. Oral zinc sulfate, 445 milligrams daily for 2 months, relieved pruritus subjectively in 53% of the patients. After treatment, serum histamine levels decreased significantly, as well as serum zinc levels increased significantly. These findings suggest that zinc deficiency participates in increased histamine levels in dialysis patients and subsequently in the development of uremic pruritus. Crazy when the research backs up what we're saying. But some people can hardly tolerate any zinc. Some people can't even tolerate. I've had people who can't tolerate the amount of zinc in red meat. Seriously. They can't tolerate 1 drop of our liquid zinc because it causes them to dump too fast. Now, here's the funny thing though. The person who I'm talking about stuck with the program. And as she got less toxic, now she's starting to tolerate red meat and zinc again. So if you don't tolerate zinc, it's a sign of toxicity in you. It doesn't mean force more zinc down. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Then don't do that. You're not ready yet. Let's continue working on less and less toxicity. And once you have less toxicity, you'll be able to take the zinc, which then will move things in the right way twice, because now you're getting less and less toxic. And then you can take the zinc to speed up your detox. And was this person deficient in zinc on her hair test and her blood test every single time? Yes. But do we force zinc down her when it makes her feel absolutely terrible? No, we don't. We get the toxicity down so then she can take it. This is the difference in approaches, folks. So, hope that answers your question, Allison. But don't use zinc sulfate. I forget. Let me see. 445 milligrams of zinc sulfate is not the milligrams of actual zinc. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So I'll just let me get this link. I think this is the link. Let me open it up. So here's a page of this. This is, I'm not recommending this product. I got this product just to show you zinc sulfate, 220 milligram tablets, 100 count, 50 milligrams of elemental zinc. So 220 milligrams of zinc sulfate, 50 milligrams of that is actually zinc, and the other 170 milligrams is the sulfate. Okay? So these people were taking about 100 milligrams of zinc a day. That's a fair bit. And I bet they had multiple people drop out of the study because it was too much for them, because the study just said, we're going to give them this much zinc, and they didn't adjust it. But still, 53% of them had less itching. Okay. So, let me go find, Pierre, thank you for the super chat. I forgot to say, Allison, thank you for the super chat. Pierre wants me to share his testimonial. Send me a super chat. I will get to that, Pierre. Yes. Let me see. Oh, RV, thanks for the super chat. Have I seen low vitamin A diet fix cavities? We have seen dental health improve greatly, especially gum periodontal health, improved gum health. We've seen less cavities. I mean, some of the parents are saying that their kids, the kids who have been doing the low vitamin A diet a longer time don't have the cavities that their other kids did. Here, let's see. I'm gonna give you guys what I like for dental care. I do not have any financial affiliation with this company, calciumtherapy.com. may get confused because I'm usually not a huge fan of calcium. I don't put calcium into the body, and calcium therapy in terms of the toothbrushing is only calcium in the mouth, on the gums, on the teeth, brushing your teeth with this. It is what I use. It is what I recommend. The two things that are involved in calcium therapy from calciumtherapy.com. Imagine this: calcium, which is meant to, the idea behind calcium therapy is like, you know how they'll try to give you fluoride. They say it binds to your teeth. Or if you've heard of nanohydroxyapatite calcium, to bind calcium to your teeth. And the research shows that that helps. Well, this other dentist just went, well, why don't we just use calcium and zinc? Zinc, imagine zinc. Who would use zinc? So it's basically, I'm not going to explain the whole thing here. Go and watch their videos. Go and read their FAQ. If you have gum problems or other teeth problems, I would contact them to ask them for their recommendations. I would watch all the videos, and you know, they have different calcium products. Like if you have gum pockets or periodontal disease, I would use that. This is what I use and I recommend. So we can kind of attack the teeth issues two ways. We can attack it systemically by making people less toxic and making their calcium metabolism better. But then we can also attack it from inside the mouth, topically, if you will. But yeah, we've had lots of improvements with dental stuff. Yes. So, RV asks, thank you for another super chat, RV. Coffee enemas. Okay. I've been over this many times, but since you did a super chat, I'll go over it again. Coffee causes bile dumping because it is bitter and because it is a toxin. Never forget, coffee's full of polyphenols. Polyphenols are a natural plant pesticide. They're designed to repel pests. Polyphenols are what most people are taught are plant antioxidants, and they're so good for you. No, what polyphenols do is, the research shows polyphenols slow down ALDH. Didn't we just talk about aldehydes? Is there an aldehyde problem out there? Yeah. 90% of the US population consumes coffee at least once a week. Or is it caffeine? It might be coffee, it might be caffeine. But like, you know how rare it is when you ask somebody like, oh, you know, people will be like, oh, you don't drink coffee? It's that rare, right? So polyphenols slow down ALDH. Slowing down ALDH creates more aldehydes. That actually depletes B1. I'm not going to explain that here today, but B1 binds to aldehydes. So if you get a bunch of great results from B1, you have aldehyde toxicity, and it's antidoting it, okay? And then caffeine is a natural pesticide. And then the whole bitter taste of coffee tells you it's toxic, okay? And yet if we drink coffee enough, we can develop a taste for it. But what do most people do? They cover up the bitter taste with more sugar, which is even worse for their liver. And then you have all these people out there who've been brainwashed into thinking that coffee's good for your liver. Maybe it'll make things look better short term, but long term, it's a disaster. This is called the duration paradox. I've talked about this before many times. So, coffee enemas. What does coffee do when we consume it? It tends to cause a bile dump, short term. When you drink coffee, most people understand the bile dump as you have to poop afterwards. That's a bile dump. That's why you want to poop, is because you have more bile in your guts. That's why a lot of people who have to drink coffee to get their one poop a day, that's the only time the bile is actually going down in their guts. So what does a coffee enema do? You put the coffee enema up into the rear end. It goes into your intestines. It triggers a bile dump. So you now have this big bile dump, and you have a bunch of extra toxic water called coffee in your guts. So the combination of the toxic bile in your gut and the toxic coffee makes you have basically induced diarrhea. You poop out the bile. And it all comes out, right? Violently. So what does this do? It is a bile dump. It is getting rid of bile. There are people out there who say that coffee enemas, when they know they're dumping bile, when they know they've already dumped bile, like they're already getting their symptoms, they feel bad. And they go, if I go and do a coffee enema, I'm saying that this is what they're saying. They say, if I do a coffee enema, and as soon as I get that out of me, I feel so much better. Actually, Rome will testify to this. He does this. Okay, so can you do coffee enemas? Sure. The thing I don't like about coffee enemas is, first of all, if you don't want to do it, like I'm not, people will say, well, Dr. Smith, do you do them? And I go, no, I'm not that sick anymore. I am not, okay, everybody has the things that they will do and they won't do to get well. Everybody has their thresholds, their limits. Okay. Coffee enemas are a lot of work. They're messy. They involve sticking things up your rear end. If you are willing to do all that and you feel better from it, go for it. I'm over 99% of my issues, and I never had to use coffee enemas. Do we have to use coffee enemas to get better? Not at all. No way. Could it accelerate things? Could it relieve symptoms for some people? Sure. Might it accelerate things for some people? Sure. Most people who do coffee enemas have no idea what the coffee enemas are doing. They have no idea about toxic bile. So they never get better because they don't know what's messing up their liver in the first place. And here's the problem with enemas. They can become addictive. They can create a dependency where you don't poop unless you shove water up your butt. I'm not trying to create dependency. I want people pooping on their own. Like we have a 67-year-old woman who's had constipation her entire life. And we're finally getting to the point she's pooping 2 to 4 times a day now. Constipation her entire life where she wouldn't poop for days. And now we've got her pooping 2 to 4 times a day. She having to do enemas to do this? No, because we're fixing the actual underlying cause of it. But basically, just think of it as coffee enemas. So a normal water enema probably wouldn't cause a bile dump. But are you going to poop out all that water that you just shoved up there? Yeah, because what is diarrhea? You're just pooping water. I mean, that's what else is your body going to do? It's going to be like, I got all this water in here. I got to get rid of it. So you poop it out and it comes out like water. Coffee enemas are a bit more aggressive. And your body, why would your body want to get rid of that so much? Well, there's the toxic bile and then there's the coffee. Everybody knows if you drink too much coffee, you get what? Diarrhea. So it all makes sense. Poison on the way in, poison on the way out. But if you want to do coffee enemas, if you're willing to do them, if you feel a benefit from them, fine. I would suggest that you only use coffee enemas as needed. Like I dated a woman for a very short time who she would say that her pain would basically build up through the day. She was on all sorts of pain meds. She was a rough case. She would take all sorts of pain meds and she would say her pain would still build during the day. And then in the afternoon, she'd do her coffee enema, or whenever she got home from work, she'd do her coffee enema and all her pain would be gone for hours. So what was causing her pain, folks? Toxic bile. So that's my coffee enema stance. Okay. Eric Crone, thank you for the super chat. He says, I've been doing the low vitamin A diet for 8 months. I have ulcerative colitis. Every day around 3 to 4 p.m., I get bad symptoms no matter what I eat. I try to stick to whole grains, beans, and lean beef. Recommendations. So, this is a huge question. So I'm going to give generalities and I'm going to say what I would do, because I may be a doctor, but me talking here doesn't make me any of your doctor necessarily. So what I would do first, if there's a diarrhea issue, I would calm down the diarrhea issue with charcoal. If we're talking about colitis and we're talking about diarrhea, and okay, so what would colitis can often involve? Even bleeding, right? ulcerative. What is eating the holes in your gut and causing diarrhea? Toxic bile. What can we do to soak up the toxic bile? Charcoal. Hardwood charcoal. Let me find it. There is only one charcoal that I absolutely recommend. Do not like, somebody just told me on Twitter, they said all the batches of coconut charcoal they've been getting lately smell and they have a weird taste. This was what somebody else told me. I just put the Zen Principle hardwood charcoal link in the chat. He said he was thinking it was, a conspiracy kind of thing. He's like, all of a sudden, all the charcoal that I ordered, the 4 or 5 different ones, they all smelled and they tasted bad. And I was like, well, he didn't say it was coconut at first. I said, the hardwood stuff I get doesn't have any problem. What are you using? He said coconut. It would be weird if they started a coconut fad where they got everybody to think that coconut's so wonderful and 0.9% of the coconut charcoal out on the market 99% of the charcoal on the market is coconut, and then all of a sudden it went bad and became toxic. That would be a weird plan, wouldn't it? They could never do such a thing. I use hardwood charcoal. Not easy to find. Zen Principle does a very good product. That's what I use daily. So first, like, you could use bamboo charcoal. It's pretty expensive. Bamboo charcoal is not cheap. It's probably one of the most expensive charcoals out there. But the Zen Principle hardwood charcoal is what I like. So first, we calm down the bowels. I would calm down my bowels if I had lots of diarrhea with charcoal. Next, if I had any hunch that the soluble fiber that I was consuming, whether it's beans or whole grains, was making the colitis worse in any way, I would eat less of them or take them out of the diet for the time being. Soluble fiber can and does increase bile dumping. Like just eating. What are the things we know can increase bile dumping? Eating. Fat in the diet. Soluble fiber. Well, fiber in general in the diet, but especially soluble fiber. Well, eating, you got to do that. Fats cause the bile dumping, but the fats also, what do we need bile for? Absorbing fat. What do we bind to fats? Toxins. Where does it go? It goes right up in the portal vein to the liver to be stored. Too much fat will cause a bile dump, which causes steatorrhea, which is fatty diarrhea. Fats are not the answer, folks. They never were. They're a short-term fix. If any of you have stories of doing keto or high-fat diets or thinking that fat was going to save your world, please comment in the chat or in the comments afterwards. Like, we have to let people know that all the unicorn rainbow fart stories about keto, it ends badly. There was one study on diabetes where they found that they tracked people's diets over, I think it was either 10 years or 20 years. And at the end of the study, I forget if it was 10 years or 20 years, the men in the study who identified as doing low carb had the highest rate of diabetes. People be like, what? That doesn't make sense. If they're doing low carb, they're probably doing high fat. The high fat diet stuff may have a honeymoon phase. It ends badly. Humans are not designed for high fat. It's just the way it is. So, Eric, if I had a really significant digestive issue, first of all, in the Love Your Liver program, I would absolutely read the probiotics articles, figure out whether you're a fermentative or a putrefactive or a mixed, and see if you can help it, because that will help determine your sources of what sources of fiber are going to be best for you, which probiotics are potentially going to shift situation the most, that's going to be something that would be something that I would do to help shift it immediately. You might even go to, for a short period of time, kind of like an all muscle meat carnivore program, like poultry or red meat, just to eliminate the fiber part of the equation for a while, so you can so one could figure out how these things affect them when you put them back in. Okay, not everybody gets along with beans. I talk highly about beans in the program, and not everybody gets along with them. Not everybody gets along with zinc at the start. Not everybody gets along with beans. Not everybody gets along with vegetables, even the low vitamin A ones. We have to listen to our body. But what I would say is if you get 3 to 4 p.m., well, 3 to 4 p.m. is also kind of a blood sugar crash time. So if you were potentially drinking too many fluids through the day, and you're coming around at 3 to 4 p.m. and getting real tired, and then having, this bile dump problem, you'd want to watch the hydration video in the Love Your Liver program, where I go over how to figure out how much fluids you need, because too much or too little fluids can definitely cause problems. So they're obviously, with ulcerative colitis, with the chronic diarrhea, there's going to be nutrient deficiencies going along with that. That's something I can't comment on here because I don't have testing. But I mean, like, just as an example, let me just do this. Ulcerative colitis, Zinc PubMed. Zinc and gastrointestinal disease is the paper. Let me find the quote. Where was it? In the introduction to this paper, they say, when considering the topic of zinc and gastrointestinal disease, several general biomedical and nutritional situations must be considered. The first, and perhaps most obvious, is that of dietary zinc deficiency. Whether this arises out of generalized dietary insufficiency, genetically based zinc malabsorption, or dietary interference with zinc absorption, as an example, phytates in the diet, and resultant diseases from said deficiency. The second consideration is that diseases such as the inflammatory bowel diseases, whose morbidity generates gastrointestinal malabsorption issues, ultimately giving rise to zinc deficiency. Finally, one must consider the supplementation of zinc to the diet and the positive role that may play in certain gastrointestinal diseases, especially those characterized by impairment of barrier function. The connection among all three situations is perhaps that zinc deficiency, from whatever source, appears to lead to gastrointestinal barrier compromise, an eventuality that is self-perpetuating. So it makes itself worse over time. So that's just one example of like a dietary problem, a deficiency problem. They were just saying it's like self-perpetuating. It makes itself worse. This is why, like, when people aren't testing, even let's say like Grant Genereux, could he have been running a zinc deficiency this entire time? Probably. It's my guess. He actually said at one point in his book, he said he took 50 milligrams of zinc about once every two weeks, and he would feel significantly better for like 2 or 3 days. To me, that screams he still had a zinc deficiency, and he was eating a pound or two of red meat a day, folks. You folks who are toxic, if you think you're going to fix all this with just diet, okay, so you're toxic. Maybe you figured that out. So you know that you have more toxins to get rid of. The body needs things like zinc to make retinol binding protein to protect you from vitamin A. You need zinc to counteract copper and get that out of you. Okay, so the toxicity itself is going to require more nutrients, zinc being one example. Okay. Maybe you already know that the food is deficient. The soil is deficient. So the food doesn't have the zinc in it that it's supposed to. And then you're going to go into detox, which is going to use up even more zinc than normal. Do you see the problem here? How in the heck are you ever going to catch up when the food is deficient? You're already toxic, and now you're going into detox, which uses even more. And on a hope and a prayer, you're just going to try to get through it. Okay, so what can we do about this? Let's say you don't want to supplement, or you don't want to test, or whatever. Okay. You're going to be reducing the toxicity over time. You're going to be reducing the toxicity coming in, which is going to reduce the amount of zinc that you do need. And let's say you are eating plenty of red meat. So at least you're getting the highest food in your diet. It contains the most zinc, usable zinc of any food. So you are getting zinc from that. The detox is still going to ramp up your needs. That's just the nature of the beast. Now, if you do it long enough, maybe you get low in toxicity enough that your diet could potentially start filling up your zinc, and the detox slows down after a while. And not slows down, but the detox doesn't have to run as fast because there's less toxins. So then you could find over time, and what we see even with people who supplement, over time they need less zinc. That is the whole goal. It would be wonderful if we got people to the point where they didn't need zinc. I still see people who have been working with me for years still need some zinc to keep their levels good. Why? Because we live in a toxic world and the food is depleted. This should make sense. Okay? So let's just say, Eric, that you're running a zinc deficiency. How do we know? Well, we would normally test, but it's probably there based on all that stuff that we just went over in that study and all the stuff I just went over here. So we work on, I can't recommend nutrients to you because I don't have testing. So if you decide you want to go out, strike it out on your own and guess, because really, folks, if you're just throwing pills down your throat, you're guessing. It's not rude. It's not offensive. It's just you're guessing. Let's just be real. So, but whole grains. So Eric, if let's say as an example, you're a putrefactive type of dysbiosis, and you're feeding tons of soluble fiber down into a putrefactive dysbiosis, you could be making the situation not so great. How could you fix that? Well, you can work on certain probiotics, and you could work on maybe more insoluble fiber. That would be like the approach. Should that be found, that would be the approach that we might do. So this is why the people who appreciate, when they come into the Love Your Liver program, they go, oh my God, this is a crazy amount of information. And yes, it is. And then as they fix each piece, they go, oh my gosh, this got better. And then this got better. And then this got better. And this got better. We have been poisoned and depleted in innumerable ways. So it's going to take a lot of plugging the holes, the leaking dam, like that story, the little Dutch boy who was plugging the holes in the dam. It's going to take a lot of things to fix it. It's not just like, don't eat vitamin A. Now, can that help a lot of people? Yes. Eating organic, people feel better and often sometimes lose weight just switching to organic foods. So what does that say? Like, just switching to organic foods can help people feel better. Problem is often when they switch to organic foods, they make other healthy choices in their diet. Like they're going to go paleo and eat tons of sweet potatoes and tons of spinach and tons of all this other, they're going to start eating liver once a week. The things that people have brought to my attention about Paul Saladino and his failing health, it's coming, folks. Just watch for it. I'm also waiting for the Liver King to crash and burn at some point. But anyway, Eric, those are some ideas that you could work on. I don't diagnose here. I just go on concepts. Like if you were working with me and you came to the office hours, we would work through it piece by piece. We would address these different things, and we would try different things each week, because some of this, if you folks, if you think medicine should be a science, and like they give zinc to these people and 53% of them get better. Okay. What happened to their 47%? Did they get worse? We don't know. But if you just listen to them, they say, well, 100 milligrams of zinc was too much. I didn't feel good on it. Well, let's try 50. And maybe 50 was the right dose for them. Or maybe 25 was the right dose. I had a woman in 6 months refill her zinc deficiency with 5 milligrams of zinc a day. Is that going to work for 99% of the people? No, it's not. But if she took any more than that, she didn't feel good. But 5 milligrams a day fixed her zinc deficiency in 6 months. Was that the right amount for her? Obviously. How would she have figured that out if she wasn't talking to me? Me giving her permission to, me saying, if you take a certain amount of zinc and you feel worse, that's too much. Go back. Try to take as much with her numbers. This is not advice I'm giving you if you're not a client of mine. With her numbers, I said, try to take it up to the level that you tolerate, because she had a significant zinc deficiency. And she did. She listened to her body based on my guidance, and we corrected that zinc deficiency. She needed very little zinc to do that. In a certain way, you are a unique snowflake, to use a term. You need different amounts of various things to get your levels right. You know, it's like that bell curve. Most people are going to be in the middle of the bell curve. Some people are going to be way out on the outside. Some people need 100 milligrams a day of zinc, and I've had people take more than that under my guidance. Some people need 1 milligram a day, 2 milligrams a day, 5 milligrams a day. It's a bell curve, folks. Most people are in the middle, but some people are way on the outside. You can figure it out on your own and trial and error, or you could lean on my experience with lots of people. So yeah. Okay. Let me get to, I think there's no more super chats. Let me go find Pierre's testimonial. Actually, Pierre, so I don't have to go search for it. Could you pop the link to it, the Love Your Liver link to it in the chat, and I will get to that. So while we're here, Monica had the first question. Hi, Dr. Smith. Is it possible to hyperventilate using any of these breathing techniques? Thank you. Well, you don't need a breathing technique to hyperventilate. just start hyperventilating. I mean, you don't need a breathwork teacher to hyperventilate. That's hyperventilating super easy. So is it possible? Okay, Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. As a healthcare practitioner, if you apply this to clients, those of you who work in customer service and work with normies, you already know that people can take the best instructions and do absolutely unbelievably dumb things with them, right? You tell them you do the right side and they do the left side. Like they're like, but I didn't know if you were looking at it through a mirror. And you're like, you didn't need to read in that much. It wasn't that complicated. It's your right hand side. Like it's not that hard. So could somebody hyperventilate with them? I mean, like I said, you don't need a course to hyperventilate. And actually with Rome's work, it's actually intended to, it's very deep breathing, where you are trying to, this is his level 1 stuff. He's got multiple levels of breath work. Like when I go and I visit him again, which I'm trying to schedule right now, he says he's going to take me on a breath work journey where just breathing, you get to clear up stuff in your nervous system and other things like that. So he's going to be kind of guiding my breathing as I go through this stuff. I'm super excited. I love going to visit Rome now. That's like, it's the only place I'll travel, really. I have no reason to travel anywhere else. Although I do need to go, for those of you who know Tyler Ginter, I need to get up to Prescott area. I need to go visit Tyler Ginter. I need to go do that. Tyler Ginter, if you guys don't know who he is, he actually helped me set up the Love Your Liver network on Mighty Networks. He did a ton of the initial setup. The network probably would not be here without him. So he is a great guy. But yeah, most of it's not fast breathing. It's not fast breathing. This is improving your ability to breathe. So there is the final breathing exercise does involve like specifically strengthening your breathing muscles. And there is a little bit of, I don't want to say speed to it, but it's faster than just the deep breathing in the various positions. So can people mess things up? We all know that people can mess things up to the ends of the earth. We live in the idiocracy. So this is why you want a good coach or a good guide. Doctors don't fix people, folks. I don't fix you. I'm like a guide. I'm saying, try this. This looks like this would be good for you. Try this. See how this feels. Do this. Come back and tell me how it went. Any doctor who says they cure people is not only the pinnacle of ego and arrogance, but they're wrong, because if you want to say the body does the healing, or then if you want to extend that to God does the healing, that's what does it. Doctors are not God. Like as an example, even if somebody would say, well, I did red light and it healed my thing. Well, if we go and we look at the red light studies, they actually speed up formaldehyde dehydrogenase. Wait, have you heard of aldehyde dehydrogenase? So imagine if red light sped up your detox in that area and you detoxed faster, your body did the healing because it was less toxic with aldehydes. And then if you want to say, well, God did the healing because he runs all of it anyway, that's fine. That's fine. I'm down with that. But yeah. So let me see if Pierre put that link in. There it is. Cool. Thanks, Pierre. Okay. Now this is Pierre. Now, so those of you who haven't seen it, I put out a video where I've been working with a gentleman. We raised his total testosterone level from the 330s to the 930s, and we doubled his free testosterone to almost high out of range. So he was high out of range on total testosterone, and he was almost high out of range on his free testosterone. These are pretty crazy numbers. Okay. So now Pierre has a different issue from birth. We'll get to that. But I want you to pay attention to his result. I'm going to tell you that until you've gone down these rabbit holes with me and you start looking at testosterone, the things they sell us on hormones are not as clear-cut and true as they make them out to be. Just like with that lady, she stopped her bioidentical hormones and her acne went away. Shocking. People out there think that bioidentical hormones can't cause any problems. I'm actually going to the Naturopathic National Convention. I'm just going to be rolling my eyes constantly at the stuff they're doing there. Well, this is going to be the last thing, unless somebody sneaks a super chat in. Here we go. So this is Pierre's testimonial inside the Love Your Liver program. Before this diet, which was when I kept eating a big variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, I would almost always feel incredibly breathless. Oh gosh, have we been talking about breathing? Even though all medical experts kept telling me that everything is perfectly fine, and I kept finding myself having what all medical experts could only label as panic attacks, which would especially happen around 3 days after doing a gym workout or any strenuous physical activity. I also kept finding myself constantly stagnating on obtaining any form of physical strength, as I was incredibly weak and slow, even while on prescription testosterone replacement therapy for my congenital hypogonadism. Basically, he's saying he was born with low hormones across the board. Okay, you can go and look up congenital hypogonadism if you want to get more information on that. So, continuing. Since my gym workouts were ironically fruitless in getting any results from 10 years of consistent effort and hard work, even when it involved being coached by experts and going through college courses / programs relating to fitness, I decided to stop exercising around 3 years ago. Frustration set in, right? For 11 months, continuing, for 11 months, I've consistently minimized my intake of all vitamins and heavy metals, including copper. My meals consisted of extra lean ground beef, organic quick oats, psyllium husk, and white navy beans. My supplements involved yeast-free selenium, zinc picolinate, taurine, molybdenum, lactoferrin, and activated charcoal. During this entire time, I've also been avoiding all drugs, including the previously mentioned testosterone replacement therapy, and I've been doing minimal exercise except for some gym workouts that I've been doing since around a week ago. While I keep doing this diet, I find it a lot easier to breathe, and I never get any so-called panic attacks, even with intense workouts. I'm starting to find myself meeting and even breaking fitness records that I could never do before this diet. Let me tell you an aside here. He started working out again a week ago. Okay. For the past 25 years, I've experimented with many different lifestyles, dietary fads, and so on. The only diet that has ever worked at all has been this diet. Just like the Bible alludes to, our main dietary staples are supposed to be, quote, clean meats and, quote, whole grains. And as nature tries to warn us through aposematism, we're supposed to avoid bright, colorful things, which turn out to be toxic / poisonous / harmful. As always, since birth, my body finds it practically impossible to make testosterone. According to my blood tests from 5 months ago, my testosterone is 0.12 nanomoles per liter, when the normal range is from 5.8 to 28 nanomoles per liter. My weekly bound testosterone is a total of 0.0576 nanomoles per liter, when the normal range is from 3.5 to 11.3 nanomoles per liter. My free testosterone is 2.4 picomoles per liter, when the normal range is from 195 to 637 picomoles per liter. I still refuse to take steroids. That's if you didn't know, testosterone replacement therapy is just low dose steroids, folks. Don't fool yourself. Don't let your local gym owner fool you and say, "Well, I'm just taking testosterone replacement therapy." It's all steroids. It's just lower doses. One's medically approved. He continues, the last sentence. I feel great without them for as long as I stay on this diet. So, thank you for the testimonial, Pierre. Now I have to go and put 3 testimonials in the title of this video. It's all your fault. So Pierre has had congenital hypogonadism, low testosterone since birth, and he gave you his numbers. His numbers are very, very low. Now, somebody out there, haters, might be like, well, why hasn't it all fixed yet? I don't know if we can. I do not know if this can be fixed. I don't know. I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's butt. Could this improve? Yes. I mean, is it likely it's going to improve from where it is now? Sure. I mean, he's still making some. But the interesting thing about this whole testosterone issue is the guy who it took the other gentleman who I brought his testosterone way up. He's an Accutane victim. Go watch that video. It's like the tripled testosterone and doubled free testosterone video. I just put it up like a week ago. But this gentleman, he was an Accutane survivor. It took him working with me 3 years to get his testosterone to come up. So a year ago, his testosterone was like 330s. And then a year later, we got it up to the 930s. But that 330s measurement was at 2 years in already. So finally we got it to jump. Huge jump. High out of range testosterone. Now, did this fix the gentleman's main concerns? No, his main concerns were that he has no libido and he has erectile dysfunction. Did we fix that yet? No, the body fixes things in, steps. So we fixed the testosterone. I actually believe some of the issues for this gentleman are likely due to calcifications in his genitals. You do calcify there. And I do believe that we need more time to fix that. But we've gotten the vitamin A issue in terms of how it affects testosterone down. So now we have Pierre who's saying within a week of being back on training, even with very little testosterone, he's saying he's breaking his own records from the past in a week of being back. So I'm not saying testosterone doesn't mean anything, but I'm saying it's not necessarily as simple as they want to make it. Now, for those of you who are out there doing testosterone replacement therapy or bioidentical hormones or that stuff, it's a Band-Aid, it's a crutch. You have to understand that usually for the most part, once doctors put you on TRT or bioidentical hormones, they have given up on fixing your hormones. Most doctors don't know how to fix hormones. That's why they put you on them. They don't think most of the time that you're willing to do the work to fix it, and they wouldn't know what work to ask you to do. Just think about this. Let's say you have hormone deficiencies because of, I'm just going to make this super simple. Let's say you have a zinc deficiency and a selenium deficiency and a molybdenum deficiency and a magnesium deficiency and a potassium deficiency. Let's say you're deficient in all 5 of those minerals. Does giving you testosterone or estrogen or progesterone fix any of those deficiencies at all? Doesn't touch them at all. So then if you continue, let's say you feel really good when you start your hormones. The very process that caused you to get deficient in those minerals, whether it's deficient food, whether it's you're too toxic, whether it's whatever, your diet choices, whatever process got you deficient in those things is probably still going on, right? Because you didn't fix it. If it continues going on, it's going to continue getting worse. You ever talk to anybody who's been on testosterone or bioidentical hormones and they were amazing at the start? They have a honeymoon phase and then they slowly kind of creep back towards how they were before, and their doctor puts them on more hormones and maybe they get a little shorter honeymoon phase, but it's not as good as it was at the start. They call it chasing the dragon, and they call this chasing the dragon in drug, like street drug things. The first high is the best. And then every high after that, people are trying to chase the dragon. They're saying the first high was the dragon. They chase it and they never get back up to the dragon. Same thing happens with hormone therapy. That first boost you get from hormones, you don't ever get there again unless you take even more hormones. And it's usually still never up there. And then it goes down again, and then you got to take it, and you never get back up there. Why is that? Because you still need zinc and selenium and molybdenum and magnesium and potassium to run all sorts of other processes in your body. Maybe, guys, you've got your boners back. You got your libido back. But does zinc play a role in your immune system? Yeah. Oh, now you've got immune system problems because your zinc kept going down, but you didn't care because your function was good. You see how this works? We're fixing both the hormones and the function because we're fixing the underlying toxicities and deficiencies. And please pray for the guys who are out there taking tons of copper, and women. Oh my gosh, copper is just... Vitamin A increases aromatase activity, which means you convert more of your testosterone into estrogen, and copper is just straight up estrogenic. I did add something, those of you who have followed me about EMF, and how we fix EMF sensitivity in a lot of people. We talk a lot about iron because it's the most magnetic mineral, so we got to fix iron overload. We talk a lot about copper toxicity. It is the most conductive or electric mineral, so that's the electromagnetic part of it. But the one thing I didn't really think of before, which I always tried to reduce it, But aluminum is extremely conductive. So getting aluminum levels down would be another way that we help EMF. It was something I was already doing. I just hadn't included it in the model. So, so let me see if anything skipped in here. Oh, and Pierre just added, my TRT high, his honeymoon phase wasn't even that great in the first place anyways. LOL. So let's see. Oh, Sam, I addressed Sam's question. I'm going to read the question here. He said, you often say to do more of what makes you feel good long term. I have found that when I eat nuts, even large amounts of them, and thus quite a bit of fat, I feel pretty good, better than before. It also makes the bowel movements more consistent. I'm curious why that is. Moreover, why do so many people feel so good on high-fat diets such as keto if high-fat intake isn't something that should be strived for? First of all, well, I've kind of already went over this. You have to understand something about people who have, however it happened, who are toxic. If you have a strong alcoholic, like a person who is a significant alcoholic, they're toxic, right? And you take away their alcohol. Do they feel better or do they feel worse? They feel worse. If you give them back their poison of choice, do they feel better or do they feel worse? Well, they feel better. Coffee junkies, take away their coffee. Oh my goodness. Right? They don't even make it to like midday before they're like headaches and raging on you and falling asleep at their desk. Give them their coffee again. Hey, they're all happy and perky and they're back. So we have to understand that when people are addicted to their toxins of choice. So giving somebody who's toxic their toxin can make them feel better. So part of it, we have to use our brain. It's not just do what feels good. If everybody just did what feels good, nothing would ever happen in this world because everybody would just sit there like a junkie doing what feels good. Now, what am I going to tell you about nuts? Nuts and seeds are really high in copper. Gosh, do we talk about copper as a toxin here? Yes, very much so. When you take the poison, so when people stop taking their poison, they start detoxing. Like you have to stop intoxing before you start detoxing. So if they stop, what happens with an addiction? What are the components of an addiction? There's tolerance, which means that people need more as they go along to get the same effect. And there's withdrawal, which is when you take away the poison, they feel worse. And then you could also include dependence in there, which is they feel like they have to have it every day. Those are the markers of drug-like effects of toxins. So let's say somebody was copper toxic and they start getting less copper, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, I'm going to eat tons of chocolate or tons of nuts because it makes me feel better. What are they doing? They're stopping their withdrawals. They're feeding their dependence. Okay? So nuts and seeds are very high in copper. I would not suggest making nuts and seeds a regular part of your diet unless you want to give yourself copper toxicity, which is, legit. I guess you could do that. The fiber, I mean, if you do well with fiber, if fiber helps you poop, I mean, that makes sense. Okay. The idea that humans thrive on huge amounts of fat, I'm still waiting for the studies on the tons of old people who are all keto fanatics. What I see on keto fanatics is if they get a honeymoon phase, they get it. And then when it falls apart, it falls apart. I already explained how high fat diets could reduce symptoms because the fatty acid esters bind to fat soluble toxins in the blood, and shove them into the liver and into the body fat. So it can actually reduce the amount of toxicity in your blood. Did the toxins leave the body? No, they did not leave the body. Those of you egg people should listen to this, because what are eggs extremely good at doing? I went over this in the egg video. They're extremely good at storing toxins in your liver, including vitamin A. How does your body bind fatty acid esters to fat-soluble toxins? It uses choline. So the idea that a high-fat diet is natural to humans, I'm not even going to talk about the Inuit, because first of all, they don't live a long time. And second, when you think of a natural wild, if you think of a wild human out in the wilderness, what kind of fats are they going to come across? Wild game. Do you know how lean wild game is? Like, you ever seen a wild animal, how you can see right through their skin to their muscles? They don't have any fat. I mean, yes, they have fat, but hardly any. Okay, so there's not much fat on wild animals. Are wild humans drinking milk from animals? No, give me a break. That's a total domesticated thing. Dairy, if you want to play games with dairy, go ahead and play games with dairy. I don't think it's going to end well. Go ahead. Don't be one of these people who's just like, oh, I drink tons of raw milk for a year and I feel great. I just talked to somebody there was somebody in the comments last week who said, I've been drinking a lot of raw milk, and all of a sudden I stopped for 2 weeks, and then I tried to drink it again and it didn't taste good. It takes avoiding toxins for your body to recognize that it's a toxin. You ever notice how people who used to smoke cigarettes and they quit later on are the people who can't stand cigarette smoke the absolute most? Because their body quickly recognizes what a poison it was. While they were smoking every day, they didn't recognize it because they're marinated in it. They're soaking in it. But once they start getting it out, their body's like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? So we got wild game with almost no fat on it. The idea that humans are going to be eating a bunch of nuts and seeds in a wild environment, like where they got to crack them and do it, it's not going to happen. Like, how many people do you know? How many people do you know who eat nuts in the shell? If you're going to eat nuts, eat them out of the shell. It'll make you eat less of them. Like, make it so you have to crack the nuts. Get the exercise while you do it. Yes, you could use a nut cracker, right? Sure, go ahead. But crack your own nuts. So nuts and seeds, yeah, there's going to be fat there, but who's going to spend the time to do it? Then let's say there's fruits, not much fat there. Vegetables, not much fat there. Whole grains, not much fat there. Beans, not much fat there. You're not going to be getting industrial oils. You're not going to be getting butter. You're not going to be getting cheese. You're not going to have ribeye with fatty streaks through it. Like the idea, okay, intramuscular fat. Like keto people, they're like, oh, my ribeyes, I love my ribeyes, that have fat streaks running through them. A healthy animal does not have fat streaks running through the middle of its muscle. So these people are eating sick animals. Obese animals with fat running through, like marbling. I love the marbling. That marbling is a sign of a very sick animal. Grass-fed beef that's fairly lean does not have marbling. That's why you have to cook it different, is because there's so much less fat in it. So the idea of humans ever surviving and thriving on a very high-fat diet, and no, I'm not talking about those up in the Arctic Circle. They're an exception. And if you want to look, here, let me show you hypothyroid face 180-degree health. Matt Stone did a great article on, I just posted earlier in this chat, an article of mine on how bad vitamin A is for the thyroid. Now, the Inuit Eskimo, up there, this article from Matt shows what a hypothyroid face looks like. And the Eskimo Inuit were running hypothyroid face all the time. And they actually had a term called pick block talk or pick block toe, which is a term for people going insane from eating seal liver, polar bear liver, fats of fat, like whale fat, blubber. They got vitamin A toxicity and they went insane. Okay, here, let me put the schizophrenia. 3 lines of evidence. 3 independent lines of evidence suggest retinoids as causal to schizophrenia. What would be the best way to get poisoned with a fat-soluble vitamin? Eat fat. Dun, dun, dun. Right? Or eat liver. What did they know could cause you to go insane? Eating seal blubber, whale blubber, polar bear liver, seal liver, fish livers. A high-fat diet. Now, for those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program, and you have read my article about over and under types, there's an exception about fat for the under types. I'm not going to go into it here, but the exception is that under types don't store toxins well. So Sam, if you're an under type, having some more fat, because under types don't store toxins well, adding a little bit of fat can help you to store the toxins, which gets them out of your blood, which helps you feel better. What is the goal on the amount of fat that we want to do with that? The least you need to get the most effect, the minimal effective dose. That's the amount. So it's complex. And what do we see as people? I was just talking, somebody in the program just said the other day that they were starting to, they're working with me, and they were saying that they were definitely an underweight person. They used to run 90 pounds, an adult, 90 pounds. And now they're up to 103 pounds. And they're not trying to gain weight. Their liver's getting better. And so they're able to hold on to more weight. And they may have been eating some extra fat, which I endorse for under types. The minimal effective dose of added fats. And as they start to hold weight on, they won't need to have the added fats. Okay? So, Pierre said it's a special day for him. Happy birthday, Pierre. I'm assuming that's what you mean. And Joe Baker's Remedy Report is here. Folks, this weekend, I want to thank Joe. Joe went over, we were working on Streamlabs, so I can have a streaming software so I can show you the papers and the studies, and I can highlight them so you can read it with me and all that stuff. So we were practicing, we were going over this stuff, figuring it all out. And what we're going to do this week, this is only for members of the Love Your Liver program. I'm going to do an extra live stream as a practice. So it's going to be a Q&A. It's going to be like the normal Love Your Liver live stream, but it's going to be a trial run, a trial by fire. So it's not going to be public. It'll only be within the Love Your Liver program. I'll let everybody in there know about it. And you guys can submit questions if you're in the Love Your Liver program. And that'll just be a fun, don't be mad at me if there's mistakes in the live stream, because that's why we're doing it. We're trying to iron out the bugs. But so that'll be a fun one. I'll figure that out. Joe and I will talk about that. So thank you very much, Joe. It was fun working with you. I'm probably going to have a whole new setup. I got a new desk, and I got a second monitor. I feel all fancy. So yeah, we're going to do the setup, I believe, today after I do my inner circle right after this. So, let's see. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, okay. So Emily, this is Emily Antiqua pointed this out. She was saying coffee enemas can be good, but if your liver's super congested, it might not be able to eject enough bile and you might feel worse. Actually, Emily, that's a very good point. And I want to explain what's going on there. Okay. There are different forms of cholestasis. There is, I'll go over the other one first, extrahepatic cholestasis. Extra means outside of, hepatic means liver. So cholestasis means toxic bile going the wrong direction or stagnating, which usually means it's going back into the blood. It means it could be going back, like nausea and vomiting is bile going back up into your stomach. And you can absorb that bile through your stomach. I've shown that research before. You can absorb the bile from the stomach into the blood. So anyway, cholestasis means bile basically getting back into the blood. So extrahepatic cholestasis means toxic bile leaking into the blood at some point outside of the liver. Okay, so at least the liver's ejecting the bile and it's leaving the liver. That's good. Okay. The problem is intrahepatic cholestasis. Intrahepatic cholestasis means from within the liver. So it's cholestasis inside the liver. So this means either the little teeny tiny bile ducts inside the liver are leaking, or the very cells, the liver cells that make the bile, are leaking the bile out. That's how toxic bile is. It can damage the very cells that make the bile. Okay? So when people have, let's say, so they have intrahepatic cholestasis of some level. So that means if they make bile and they try to dump it, it actually just goes right back into the bloodstream. Okay? So the trigger can still be, let's say somebody does a coffee enema and they put a trigger into their body that says dump bile. The desired outcome is the bile goes into their intestines and then they can diarrhea it out. But what if that bile, what if they have intrahepatic cholestasis and it goes right back into their bloodstream? It never gets down to the intestines to be washed out. Then they would feel worse. This is toxic bile theory, folks. When you understand where the bile can go and what it does, I mean, what it can cause? Everything chronic disease. Acute disease. If you look up septic shock, it's bile in your blood. It's too much bile in your blood that could kill you. But when you understand the bile problem, then we can explain why do some people feel worse from coffee enemas? Because their bile doesn't go down. It went right back into their bloodstream. Intrahepatic cholestasis is actually what they say happens most in pregnancy. IIP, idiopathic intrahepatic, IIC, idiopathic intrahepatic cholestasis. So they're saying during pregnancy, so idiopathic means we don't know what causes it. Intrahepatic means it starts in the liver itself and it goes, and cholestasis means toxic bile leaking into the blood. So toxic bile leaking into the blood directly from the liver during pregnancy that we have no idea what causes it. That's modern medicine's excuse. Idiopathic. We don't know. Even though there's been studies showing that it's actually, they think it's the increased in progesterone sulfate. Gosh, we would never say bad things about sulfate here, would we? Progesterone sulfate causes the cholestasis of pregnancy. Interesting. Sulfate coming up. So never use zinc sulfate. Oh my gosh, don't add more sulfur to your system. There's plenty of sulfur in red meat. There's plenty of sulfur in chicken. That doesn't mean don't eat them, but just don't add sulfur from like cruciferous vegetables. Don't add sulfur from allium, garlic, and onions. Don't add sulfur from egg whites if you don't need to. So yeah. But that was a good point, Emily. That's what I just gave was just the more nuanced explanation of where the bile is going. So, RV said, this is another thing. RV said to Emily, he said, I didn't feel better or worse after. My friend said a successful enema will make you feel a bit nauseous. I'm telling you that nausea is bile going back up into your stomach, which is again showing what a coffee enema does is it's dumping bile. Now, I don't know that a successful one means that you have to dump bile all the way back up into your stomach. That's not the goal. The goal would be to get it out, preferably without making you nauseous first. Oh, Joe was asking, what is a spurdy. A spurdy is, let me see, is a sun lamp. Find it. Hold on. I have a link for you. Ugh. Here we go. So Spurdy makes sun lamps. Make a UVB lamp, a more UVB lamp. So think of UVB as not really the tanning stuff, but more vitamin D making. And then they have another lamp that has a little bit more UVA. UVA is more of the tanning, which could be interpreted by some who might know as skin damage. But it also it breaks down more vitamin A in the skin. Gosh, wonder how it causes skin damage. Just remember, I'm still trying to find any evidence of, yes, there's the vitamin D thing, but sun exposure, think about this. Doesn't the sun like break down and damage everything that is exposed to it? Like, I mean, yes, plants can grow from it. They need it. And I'm not going to argue that we do need light. But the idea that we should like fry ourselves like a rotisserie chicken and get a tan out of the sun, a tan is your skin charring, folks. There's a funny guy on Twitter called Really Tan Man. And he says the way you're going to get really, really tan is to eat tons of vitamin A. Do I believe him? Yeah. Because the people who have tons of vitamin A in their skin, they get, you ever notice where people say, oh, I get a little burn, a little sunburn, and then it turns into a tan. Oh, so you got known skin damage and it turned into a tan. And your tan skin kind of looks like golden brown chicken skin after it's been in the oven getting crispy fried from heat. Another oxidizer, like the sun. I do not think going after a tan as a goal is a good idea. And what we see as people are less toxic from vitamin A, they don't burn or hardly get any kind of burning on their skin from being out in the sun a long time. And they definitely really don't tan much. Here's an idea, folks. Maybe getting too much sun with vitamin A in it is bad for your skin. And maybe sunscreens are bad for you too. So maybe maybe the way to fix all of it would be not to put the toxins on your skin in the form of sunscreen, get the toxins out of your skin by avoiding vitamin A and other toxins like that. And then instead of putting toxins on your skin, use clothing to cover yourself. So you don't put anything poisonous on your skin and you still protect yourself from the sun, because the sun breaks things down over time. Nobody denies that. I mean, you don't see these old people who are like super tan. They don't look really young, right? They look like leather. They look like tanned leather. It's not a good look, I don't think. I mean, no, we don't. And then somebody's going to make the comment, well, you don't want to look all pale and pasty either. Come on. Don't argue by extremes. That doesn't get us anywhere. Now, I'm not talking about a person's base skin color. Like, people can have different skin tones. Of course. I'm talking about getting more of that. I don't think that's tan. I'm still waiting to find research that says the actual tanning of your skin is associated with health. There is evidence that getting lots of sunburns is bad for your health. Okay, getting lots of sunburns would correlate with lots of toxins in your skin. But also those people who got lots of sunburns would also get more tan as the sunburn turned into a tan. Multiple things can be true at once, folks. But yeah, the Really Tan Man on Twitter says, eat more vitamin A if you want to get really, really tan. I would say that is true. Do I think that's a good plan for your long-term health? No. If you want to get a really, really good tan, don't do the vitamin A detox. You'll stop burning, you'll stop tanning because you're not toxic. If you want to get really toxic and get really tan, go eat lots of vitamin A. Okay? So, Emily, this is another good quote from Emily. She says, watching these live streams is so insane. It's like finally being able to connect all the insane symptoms I've had at such a young age to toxic bile. Yes. It's fun. It's like, I mean, it's like exploring a whole new world of health, and it all starts to make sense, which is really fun for me. And I hope you guys, you know, I know it really can blow minds at the start. But yeah, it's I have the best job in the world. Okay. So I think that's all I'm going to do today. I got to get to the inner circle. I'm a half hour late. The inner circle, if you don't know, is a private video Q&A on the Love Your Liver network. It's only for it's a, you know, extra fee. People come in there and they get unlimited questions to ask me. So if you're into asking me unlimited questions, first of all, join the Love Your Liver network, and then you can join the inner circle and you can ask me as many questions as you want, where I go into greater detail. I do very much what I do here, but I can go into greater detail and I don't have to worry about any algorithms or any sensors or anything like that stopping me from saying what I want to say. I did actually have to, what was it? What was the website that wouldn't host me anymore? My inner circle. I can't remember. I forgot all about it. Somebody, if somebody remembers, Vimeo kicked me out. They thought that some of my inner circles were too controversial. So they booted me, and now we're on Rumble that's where we store our old videos. So that's how controversial I can get in the other, in the inner circle. Definitely I hold back here. So anyway, hope you all have a great week. Another great Monday. I will see you all next week. Bye now.